process is quite an experience. It's like having an emotionally abusive relationship with myself. So I identify as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It's like a threesome abusive relationship. Very kinky.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Chinatown 2.0, a show about Chinese immigrants thriving. I'm your host, Richard Yan. Today I interviewed my friend and stand-up comedian Amy Yu. She is a bilingual comic based in Canada. So today we talked about how stand-up comedy has changed her life, how she thinks about telling jokes in Chinese versus in English, and how to properly tell a dirty joke. I also had a pretty serious debate with her about the role of artificial intelligence in comedy. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe.
很快，我觉得就是 AI 就要讲，我们就用 AI 来互相沟通就好了。我们就直接用那个 neural link 来，就不用语言，你知道吗？语言是非常 low throughput 的一个。
It sounds kind of depressing. Yo, so dehumanizing. That's kind of depressing. It's like we're getting less and less connected.
Well, not necessarily. 像 Elon Musk 他的那个 neural link，它可以让两个人的 communication 完全的 high throughput。因为语言其实是一个 low throughput 的东西。像你脑子里现在想很多东西，但是我要讲给你听，我还要去描述，我要用到词汇不一定精准，而且我表达的这个不一定很清楚，你不一定听得到，而且我表达时间又很长。versus 以后的话，真的很有可能就是我的 chip 和你脑袋的 chip， 一下你就知道哦 ，OK， 可以，我知道你什么意思了，你知道吗？就连误会的这个空间都不一定有。
Interesting.
当然，这是你可以 argue 这是 dehumanizing， 你也可以 argue this is too drastic of a change or break from tradition。但是我觉得 unfortunately or fortunately the world is moving that way， 总会有人发明这个东西，然后我的小孩就会用这个。然后我去跟他说，哎，你要 clean your room 啊，或者你为什么是 hit your sister？
Right.
他说 OK，what do you really mean? Let's turn on this thing.
I think it depends on the why. 就是这个 how 迟早都会有人发现这个 how， 但是 the key is the why. Like, what are the use cases? Like where you are gonna apply it, the intention behind it.
Yeah.
我其实就是我之前在硅谷的时候，我记得我在一个 dinner。有很多人说以后那个什么有声书都要 AI 朗读啦，以后什么 AI 都可以用来创作艺术啦，以后 comedy 都可以 AI 来写啦。
是的，是的。
然后我当时有一个很 strong 的 opinion 说 yes, it's capable, they're capable.
对。
But in the meantime, what's the point? What's the whole point? Like, there is a tremendous value of being human. There is a tremendous value of things created by human. Because it's imperfect. Right. It's flawed. It's subjective. It has emotions. It has feelings. It has consciousness. And that's what makes it beautiful. And what's the point of creating something so flawless and doesn't have any biases? It sounds boring, but I don't think appreciating the beauty of art or human creation is clinging on to the last generation. It's something that exists throughout human history. Like art creation, the action of art creation, the action of creativity, the action of creating is a human activity that's gonna exist anytime. It's timeless.
不，但是它也可以有另外一种形式存在。例如说墙纸好了，你的房间里面有墙纸的话，那个墙纸以前是用 mural 画上去的，所以可能有一些皇亲国戚才有这种资源去请那种画师，花很长时间去精雕细琢，搞得很漂亮。但现在的话完全可以工业化了，对吗？你在 Amazon 上面10几块钱就可以买到非常漂亮的墙纸，但是我们就会把我们的
对，的确更 accessible 了。
我们就会把我们的 creativity 不是放在画墙纸上面，而是例如说设计墙纸的样子，或者说去寻找墙纸的最便宜的和最合适的材料。假如说以这个 joke 为例的话，以后假如真的是 robots 来帮我们写 joke 的话，我们可能就要升级成另外一个层面上的 creativity， 我们就要 create some other kind of stuff。因为 the truth is， 其实说实话，现在已经有很多东西是 robot 已经做得比我们好，而且或者说我们都 indistinguishable。所以我觉得
好也是 subjective 的。我认为这个好，就是你对艺术的审美也是非常 subjective。当然，你这个要从各方面考虑了。我觉得就是非常 industrialized 或者 mass produce 那种，你要看它这个地方是看实用性的。
对。
就是在这种讲实用性和 accessibility affordability 的情况下，我觉得像 AI any automation it's very helpful because it creates convenience and affordability.
Yes.
It creates accessibility.
Yes.
But there's also the other way around, which is when I say art creation, I'm not just talking about fine art. I'm not just talking about digital arts or print. I am talking about 艺术本身，就是我所指的是包括行为艺术、表演艺术，包括 stand-up comedy， 包括就是舞蹈，
对，
就是他们之所以有欣赏价值 ，it's because it is created by human for human. It emphasizes on the human experience. 就是脱口秀的魅力在于 you are expressing something that resonate with people. You're connecting with people. Like 的确现在就是 Netflix's joke actually has 2 videos of stand-up comedy written by robot and it's funny. But in the meantime, it's like, okay, yes, it's funny and it's awesome that robots can now write jokes. But does that mean
喂，但是等一下，但是你可以听得出来是 robot 写的嘛，对吧？它没有人那么自然写的。
对啊，没有那么自然。
哦，对啊，
而且那个特色是没有，那个个人特色都没有了呀，那个 characteristic 都没有了。
对，
一个 comedy what makes stand-up comedians so memorable is their on-stage persona, their on-stage character. And that character is unique to themselves. You cannot bring their joke to another person, ask another stand-up comedian to do their joke, and it will have the same effect on the audience, right? It's not the same.
我唯一想指出的就是，其实有很多东西人们觉得 robot 没法做到，但是有可能有一天真的做到了。就直接说从 robot 从要模仿一个人的情绪，要 take on a certain kind of persona，然后 to write jokes that's consistent with that persona and persona only. I think it's entirely possible. It's basically a Turing test, right?
But why? But why would you do it? It is possible. Well, why waste that effort doing that instead of using AI on something more useful?
Why? Because it's a great question. I think it's because, I don't know why, but someone's going to do it for money. And the reason why they will do it for money is because it's more efficient. Because if I am the producer of a comedy show, I need to go out and hire humans to do it, and they're difficult to work with, they're expensive, they break down. And with the robot, it's much easier. You can probably have, even a factory produce several different types of prototypes, all with different emotions. And who knows, maybe you can hire 3 robots and they can do a 20-person movie or a 20-person comedy show. So the why would be because it makes money.
Is making money really a good reason to work for?
And why do people care? Because it makes money?
I will argue, is it really a good reason to work for? Do you think it's going to make the world better?
Well, not necessarily for you personally, but it could be for some other people, right? Like, let's say somebody has been poor all his life, and he or she just feels that having extra money confers them more independence, gives them more power. They feel more in control of their own existence.
Don't you think that's very discriminating? I think that mentality actually discriminates based on people whose worship of money and whose value of wealth.
Wait, why is that discriminating? That's just what certain people want out of life. They want to make money because that gives them meaning. How's that discriminating?
But not everyone values money.
Yeah, not everyone. But I know what I'm saying is,
and it's not the most important thing. But why would you why would you choose to replace something like stand-up comedy instead of actually replacing something that is causing a lot of pain? Like, why not spend that resource making money from actually helping uplifting the humanity? Because I don't think replacing our creation, where the main value comes from human creation, is actually uplifting the humanity.
Wait. Hold on. So I don't know what the humanity-wide implication will be if somebody creates a comedy machine. Okay, I don't know if that actually is a net value destruction for humanity yet, right? But even so, if it's a net value positive for that one person who creates the machine, then you can't really argue that's morally bad.
Why are you only considering the benefit for the person creating the machine rather than the impact on its users, on the humans that's using the machine, the users who are using the end product of that machine. Because it doesn't matter what technology you create, at the end of the day, on the receiving end, there's a human being, there's thousands of human beings, there are millions of human beings. Why are we only thinking about the benefit to the creator of the machine?
No. I'm saying, well, let the audience decide, right? You can't force the audience to say only listen to a human do comedy, correct? Do you agree on that?
We're not forcing the audience.
Correct. But you need to give them a choice, right?
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Which is
Okay.
which is like forcing people to listen to robots. That's not what I'm saying at all, right?
No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, yes, technology create convenience,
Yeah.
but in the meantime, we cannot neglect or overlook the negative limitation and impact it has made to people's mental health, to people's overall life satisfaction, to people's overall life fulfillment, because money is not everything. Like,
Yeah.
I have very strong opinion about this. I am open to be challenged,
Yeah.
but in the meantime, I want to share some different perspective here. Let me just give you an example. I forgot which product I was using, but it was during the time that was really, really difficult for me. I need to get something resolved really soon because it was a really stressful time.
Okay.
I tried to contact customer service, and what I got in response is all AI, all automated messages.
Right.
And it never led to a real person. It never, ever led to a real person who is capable of listening, is capable of emphasizing, is capable of acknowledging, is capable of holding space for another human's emotion.
Right.
I felt really, really disconnected, and I felt really dismissed. And this experience is not just unique to me. I'm very, very sure a lot of people have faced that. I know right now, like, one day it's gonna be possible that AI is capable of doing everything, even potentially empathy. But I just want to bring it up that we need to be very clear. Yes, it's important to know what's capable, but it's also important to be considerate when you design it. Because at the end of the day, whatever you push out to the world, there is a real human with emotions at the receiving end.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I would say a lot of the big tech company, their products is creating so much mental health issue in the world.
Yeah.
It's creating so much toxicity because their products are gamified to make people addicted, make people addicted to cheap dopamine rather than actually developing good habits,
Sure.
like things that are good for their mental health, for their physical health, right?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, one issue I'm noticing in the Bay Area is the obsession with the how. There's not a lot of people obsessed with the why, but a lot of people obsessed with the how. And to me, that seems problematic because I really hope people who are capable, people who know what technology can do, people who have control over the how, they have a heart and they have a good why
Sure.
and they are considerate.
Sure. I mean, I think I would just argue that with all the evils that technology has induced, we should not also ignore the benefits. Like, just take WeChat as an example. The other day, I was listening to this podcast about some woman about how she found a childhood friend or a childhood relative somewhere in China and was able to converse with that person through WeChat.
I never diminish the benefit either. I actually acknowledge the benefit. I appreciate a benefit, which is why I am working in tech right now.
Yeah.
I am working in tech.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. I joined tech because of the tremendous benefit it is creating.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it broke my heart to see how much lack of consideration, empathy, and thoughtfulness in the design of tech. That is something I'm noticing lacking in a lot of tech people. And that is why this is an opinion that I held really strongly.
Yeah. No, I can tell.
I'm not saying like we shouldn't, but whenever someone's obsessed over the how, I will challenge them. Why?
Yeah. So I think the original argument is, so first of all, we live in a free society. People largely are free to do what they want to do. Now, there are negative externalities to what they do, right? Juul is an example. Like, people smoke Juul. the vaping devices, but they're tremendously harmful to people's health. But at the end of the day, the entrepreneur is free to make that. But does that mean that as a society we can't have a moral stance against it? Does that mean that we can't do something to educate future wannabe entrepreneurs, to perhaps lead them to do something that's more obviously net positive for society, as opposed to something that's net negative for society, such as Jewel, in my opinion?
I think that's possible. I think people needs to develop that awareness, right?
Yeah.
Because whatever they create have massive impact on people. That is why, like, I'm an advocate for human-centered design.
But I think we're talking about something different when it comes to AI generated comedy, though, because to me, I don't feel that, like for Jewel, for example, I totally agree with you. It's a piece of technology that has marginal positive benefits but huge negative destruction. And to the extent that we can educate future entrepreneurs to do something that's more obviously positive, we should do so, right? But when it comes to comedy, I actually don't think of AI generated comedy as not uplifting for humanity. I see it as neutral.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I don't think it should replace. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't think it should fully replace. I think the two should coexist.
right, right, right.
That's my opinion.
But when you say it should not replace, what do you mean? Are you going to have labor laws, or are you going to have restrictions when it comes to this kind of thing?
I don't think we're gonna align on the same page on this topic.
Right. I just didn't understand what you meant by having this replace. I personally don't think one thing should replace the other one. I'm just saying they can naturally coexist and just have them both happen. But whatever happens, happens.
I see where you're getting at now.
Yeah.
I see where you're getting now. What I mean is, what I'm hoping for is eventually in the ideal state
Yes.
that they will coexist and they will each have their own audience and people will be appreciate both.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I just hope evil capitalism
Yeah.
won't, as a result, discriminate against human comedians because they feel the AI comedians are cheaper.
Mm,
You see what I mean?
I see what you
Do
mean.
you see what I mean? Because comedy is already a very low paying industry unless you're it's a very winner takes all field. Unless you're like a top notch comedian, you're not gonna be able to make a living from it.
Yeah, let's take the Dolly 2 as an example, right? So Dolly 2, they no longer have the wait list, so you can create any art by writing a prompt. You can say, Donald Trump riding a unicorn or something, and then it will draw it. And you can even mention different styles of it. So that obviously is now going to displace certain jobs, right? Because if I'm an aspiring sketch artist or a web designer or a graphic designer, now these robots are literally taking my paychecks, right? Because someone else will just use the website for free. So in this case,
Okay, let me bring up another problem.
yeah,
Let's say it's going to display the artist, and what can the artist do instead? If everything is replaceable by AI, if everything is replaceable by AI, what's the solution for the human? Like, what skill can human grow instead if everything is replaceable at this point? What skills should humans develop instead to make the society functional and healthy and livable?
yeah. I think there's a couple of things. I think they need to move up the value chain, meaning they have to stay ahead of the AI curve. They need to do things that AI is unable to do. That's number one.
What are some of these things?
Yeah, let's get back to that, right? So let me finish, right? That's number one. Number two is I think there needs to be universal basic income. So the productivity that AI has created, we should essentially tax the robot. I mean, robots are working for us, right? Not the other way around. So to the extent they can make crops more easily, they can make transportation cheaper, whatever savings or productivity they're creating, let's distribute that to ensure basic level of subsistence for human, right? For everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But in terms of what we can do that AI cannot, I don't know. Like,
And how can a human actually stay ahead of the curve? Because it's a privilege to be able to even learn skills on a continuous basis. Our education system is not that fast to catch up.
no, definitely not. Yeah,
Like, even for me, it's a privilege for anyone to be able to continuously upskill on skills that AI cannot learn.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's a privilege. And how do we make sure that everyone and all the humans who have access to what they need to learn those skills and catch up to the AI?
oh, it's a very hard problem. It's definitely a very hard problem. I mean, even today,
right?
as it is today, there are already many people that can't keep up with the types of curriculum that would land them decent jobs, right? Like people are getting
Exactly.
replaced by machines as we speak, right? I mean,
Exactly.
so there's two things happening, right? There's the flow of capital from developed countries to developing countries. It's outsourcing of jobs, right? Essentially having cheaper labor do your job. So now you're out of a job,
Right.
hollowing out of the middle America. The second thing happening is just people being replaced by machines. So I think what I'm trying to say to you though is
Hmm.
like some things I feel are inevitable. I'm actually not championing it.
Hmm.
I'm not celebrating that fact. I think it's almost like I'm telling you that I'm going to die one day. And I'm not
Yeah.
being pessimistic about it or obviously not singing any praises for that fact. It just seems to me it's unstoppable. Like the only thing you could do in this case, which is what I was saying earlier, which is to set laws. So you can tax the robots, or you can say you're just not allowed to do research in certain areas. But those seem impractical to me. If you do that in the US, the Chinese government or the Iranian government or North Korean government, even, they're going to outpace you in the end. In some cases, I believe the Chinese government already has advantages over Western governments, right? We just don't know.
Hmm.
So I think the best middle ground is to make sure everyone has a dignified level of subsistence as a result of this AI boom.
Hmm.
So basically my point number two, right? Point number one, I think is harder. I concede it's very hard. But the problem is I just don't know. It really, to me, it feels like inevitable.
Yeah.
I just don't know how else to stop that. But in the meantime, while we share this great moment of agreement, let's talk about you, Amy.
I appreciate you expanding my perspective as well, and we were able to kind of get to the same point.
That's right. This is a serious thing because every generation will have their
Yeah.
challenges. Just when I think I live a pretty good life, I got another thing coming for my kids.
Yeah.
My boy is going to be dating like a Martian or something, and then or a robot, or worse, a robot girlfriend or multiple robot girlfriends.
They're gonna face so much pressure to catch up.
Yeah, he's going to use an AI to decide whether I'm making a good decision with my life, and I'm going to tell him, no, 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 I got to do it the old school way of thinking through my brain. He's like, what are you talking about? My computer tells you have 95% failure rate. I'm just like, oh man, right? But think about it. There's already a gap between me and my parents, it's perhaps with yours,
Yeah.
where they're like this new thing that you're doing. I'll try my best to understand it, but I don't approve of it instinctually. But the same thing is going to happen. So earlier you told me that comedy has changed your life. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure.
How did that happen?
So how I started doing comedy was by accident. So I remember like back in 2019 and 2020, I was very, very depressed. I was like having a quarter life crisis. I was really severely depressed. I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't get out of my bed. And I had to actually take 2 months off work to take care of my mental health, and go to therapy. And I remember back then, like, I was really desperate to.
Because of isolation, right?
I don't think it's isolation, but rather I wasn't in the right career, and also I was having a lot of failures in my career, my personal life, my
Okay.
relationship with family, relationship with friends, dating life.
Yeah, yeah. This is 2020, you said.
2019, I would say 2019.
2019.
2019 was a really difficult year for me. Basically, I realized like I was not in the career that I wanted. I was working at Big Four. I was working at Deloitte back then. It wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. And then I felt really stuck because I haven't figured out what I could be good at or what I actually will love doing.
Yeah.
So it was a point of very, very low, I would say emotionally low period. And so out of a really random opportunity, so like, because my friends knew I was depressed.
This was in Toronto already.
This was in Toronto. Yeah, this was in Toronto. One day, like, because one of my friend knew I was really depressed, so he signed me off for this kind of personal development course, because it has helped him with his crisis. So like, okay, I signed up for this course, which was somewhat helpful. But like, what's most helpful about that course was there's a section where they invited some of the students of that course to go on stage and share their personal stories and their challenges and struggles.
Right.
So when the other people went on stage, they usually talk about their trauma, Some people went through a really, really dark and abusive childhood, really, really tough. Some people were victim of domestic abuse and had to heal themselves, and it was really heavy, like dark and heavy
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
So the audience were like, "Oh, I empathize so much." And they were feeling sympathy. But when I went on stage and started telling about my quarter life crisis, people started laughing.
What?
But I kind of liked it. The thing is, I kind of liked it. It's like I don't think they were laughing at me.
Yeah.
They were laughing because they relate to my experience, because my story was such a contrast to everyone else's. It's like everyone else's was like, "Oh my god, I was abused as a kid. Like I went through abuse. I was so traumatized. I thought I was broken. Blah 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 blah." When I went on stage, I was like, "I hate accounting." I literally said that. I hate accounting. I regret choosing accounting as a major, because I chose accounting because my mom is an accountant. My dad teaches accounting. So it's a family business. Like I was ranting and people started laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like Prince William,
Yeah, like literally I wrote that joke into my comedy set.
except your parents aren't royalties. They're accountant. They're
Yeah.
CPAs.
I like to joke that I chose accounting as a major because it's a passion of my parents. Like that's literally one of my punchlines. Like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah, so I started ranting on stage and people started laughing. And when they started laughing, I felt really good about myself. Like, I was like, holy crap,
Right. Right.
I have never felt this good. Like, because I was super depressed during that time.
Mm.
When I felt that surge of energy in my body, I was like, fuck, I felt so alive. It's like, it's like I felt so alive. This is amazing.
Yeah. Preach, sister. Yeah.
Yeah, so I signed up for a stand-up comedy class because I want to get more of that energy.
Okay.
I remember like my first class, I was so depressed when I went to the classroom. I was like I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't even want to introduce myself. I was like because like back then I was still depressed, so my energy level was super low. And like when a teacher asked us to each introduce ourselves, I was like there's nothing interesting about me. I'm a freaking boring accountant. And then my classmates
Yeah.
were like, "Oh my god, I'm an accountant too. I also work at Big Four. I'm also depressed." So I realized half of my comedy class were also depressed accountants.
Right. 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 Yeah.
And that immediately made the whole experience better. And
Yeah. You guys should have gotten a corporate sponsorship. The next joke is brought to you by PwC.
oh my god, yeah. And then that was the start of the journey. Like I just couldn't stop. And I remember I did Second City, right? I did Second City Toronto, and then at my graduation show when I landed that waves of laughs, I'm like, oh my god, I want to do more of this. And then a pandemic happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Second City is a very well-known comedy performance troupe, isn't it? Are you talking about their classes?
They are also a training center for comedians.
Training center. Got it. Got it. Got it. I'll ask you something. Like, I totally get how you would get a thrill from someone laughing your jokes, right? But inevitably, comedians bond from time to time. Like, first of all, have you had that experience where you just performed for 5 minutes and nobody was laughing or barely anyone was
Oh
laughing?
yeah.
And if so, how did you feel afterwards?
So my very first in person show after the whole pandemic, because I did the pandemic during the pandemic, there was no in person show, right? So I did.
Yeah.
So I was mainly performing on Zoom, and the first time when things opened up in Toronto, and I got my first in person book show, that was my like the first time that I actually performed at like an actual stage. I remember it was at a Toronto comedy bar, and I was like, "Holy shit, this stage looks so fancy! Oh my god, these audience paid to watch the show! Oh my god!" And I was so nervous. I was really in my head, and I didn't connect with the audience.
Mm.
I didn't do anything to connect with the audience, and as a result, I didn't land. I bombed. I bombed so hard. I bombed like
Okay.
at least half of that set. I think I landed a few chuckles, like
Yeah.
probably because the audience is nice. Like, but
Right. Right. Right.
I
Yeah. I
bombed.
know that feeling.
Yeah, I bombed. I just told myself, I'm a newbie. It's normal.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
but I did need to get better. I did want to get better. So what happened was I remember one of the comedians that I follow, Judy Carter. She's the author of the Comedy Bible.
The Comedy Bible, yeah.
Yeah, and she does Instagram live stream sometimes. And so one time when she was doing Instagram live stream, I dropped in and I said, "Hey, Judy, I just had my first in-person book show and I bombed."
Right.
And she said, "Congrats on bombing. Congrats. You have landed your first bomb. We all been there. It's a milestone.
Yeah.
Celebrate." I was like, wow, this is actually kind of empowering. And then she asked me specifically how I opened up my set. And then I told her, and then she pointed out where I made a mistake. She said,
I see.
yeah, she said, stand-up comedy, you should make the audience feel like they're having a conversation with you. So you should be talking to the audience. Like, even if you might not be doing crowd work, you should at least make it feel like you're talking to the audience
Yeah.
rather than you're just reciting your script.
Right. Right.
Yeah, like that was really, really helpful. And then my second comedy show, I landed more laughs. And then the third comedy show, even more laughs. So it's like, it's like an iterative process.
Yeah. I see. Wow, this is good. I mean, for me, my first performance I actually got lots of laughs to my surprise, and then my
Nice.
third and fourth were just abysmal. It was like quieter than the funeral, and I got really depressed as a result. Actually, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then the one that you came to, the one that you saw me perform, was my fifth one. That was me playing the
Oh,
keyboard.
wow.
Yeah.
That was really impressive, by the way. I really appreciate your performance.
Oh, thank you, thank you. But it was kind of discouraging because some comedians didn't like the fact that I was playing the keyboard. To them, it felt like a shortcut.
Oh,
It's almost like me tickling the audience a little bit while telling the jokes. You see what I mean? Like I'm getting them to, um,
no.
I don't know.
I think people should be able to appreciate different kind of art form, like different like variety of different talent. I think musical comedy is totally good. I like musical comedy. I like when
Yeah.
a show has more variety of different talents rather than just straight up like you have to only follow this rule.
Who are your biggest comedic influences? Which comedians do you like or emulate?
So I follow. Okay, so one of my biggest comedic influencer, I would say the first one is Ali Wong.
Mm, okay.
Um,
Yeah.
like she was also based in Bay Area,
Right.
because like she's very blunt and unfiltered. I just love how bold she is in like saying the harsh truth in such like a hilarious way.
Right.
And I am also influenced by there's this Japanese comedian called Atsuko. I forgot her last name. She has a lot of immigrant jokes as well, which I find really relatable and hilarious. And her delivery is really hilarious. She has a very unique and memorable style. And one of the newer comedians that I really like is Irene too. I don't know if you know her, but she's based in the Bay Area too.
No.
She was on the Netflix Joke Festival. She's like, I think she's up and coming, and I think she has a lot of potential. And some of the other comedians that I follow, I think Chris Rock, like, in terms of male comedians,
Chris Rock.
I really like following people of color because they tend to have like very unique kind of perspective coming from
Yeah.
like, kind of like that underprivileged background.
Okay.
Yeah, who is your comedic influence?
Gosh, I really like Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen DeGeneres? Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like her. I like her because she has a mix of things going on for her. She does skits.
Mm-hmm.
She can dance on stage, and at least her earlier performances, it really comes from a place of compassion.
Right.
Like I think she tells a lot of truths that are not easily recognized by people.
Mm-hmm.
I like Anthony Jeselnik. 地
Mm,
狱梗.
do you go?
Oh, I like Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, I like one-liner jokes. I like Zach Galifianakis.
Mm.
I don't know if you know him.
I haven't watched his acts yet.
You heard the movie? Gosh, what's the name of the movie where these guys got super drunk in Las Vegas and then they forgot what they did the night before when it was the night right before their best friend's wedding. Hungover, Hangover.
Yeah, Hangover.
Yeah, Hangover. Yeah, so Zach Galifianakis was in that movie.
Gotcha.
He also does stand up from time to time. He actually plays the piano. That's where I learned to do musical comedy.
Nice.
Yeah, I also like Bo Burnham.
Oh yeah, Burt Burnham is also a musical comedian. Yes. He's really
Yeah, I like him a lot too. I kind of like Ricky Gervais.
yeah, Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, I can't agree with everything he says. Actually, from time to time,
Yeah, yeah,
he actually sort of used the C word on Chinese people once, but not the short one,
yeah.
the long one. He said Chinaman.
Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
god.
yeah. It's actually a very strange feeling because he was doing his whole Netflix special for the first 30 minutes was hilarious. And then he said, oh, just like a Chinaman. And then instantly I felt like, my defense system come alive.
Yeah,
And I,
it's true.
and I actually had a very honest reflection after the fact. I was like, so how do I judge this? Can I separate the art from the artist? What does this mean when someone says something like this?
Yeah.
Should I be offended? What does it mean to be offended? So I kind of went through that whole exercise.
I think it depends on their intention, right? It depends on their intention. Does he use the word out of an intention where he was disrespectful? Or he acknowledged the effect of that word, but the intention is not to disrespect or insult.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that all comedy has some element of superiority. Like you're poking fun at something,
Right.
you're kind of saying, well, at least I'm not that. And then the audience members laugh along with you. And it's like, oh, you're such a horrible person. But deep down, they're also like, yeah, that's funny. Like, I think it comes from a place where he was making fun of the term China man because he says that's the laziest form of racial slur. Because just
Yeah.
take China and then man, and boom, you have it. It's like,
Okay, then I don't think his intention is to insult.
yeah, but it's not. Oh God. Okay, let's not go there anymore. But I feel there's still but he was saying some other stuff in addition to this, right? He was, let's put it this way, he was not an advocate. Okay, Amy, he's not an advocate.
I get it. It's like similar to Dave Chappelle's opinion on trans community. You know what I mean? Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
Dave Chappelle's Netflix special on trans community? It's probably similar.
The only clip I heard about that was he was basically saying it was unfair for a trans woman to become the woman of the year, her first year being a woman, when so many other black folks were downtrodden and didn't, where's my prize, N word.
Mm.
That's the clip that I heard. And I can't, it's very hard to pass moral judgment. He seems to have a point. So I don't know.
It's a tough topic to tackle.
Let me ask you this. So you also do comedy in Chinese, right?
Hmm.
Tell me, do you feel you are funnier in Chinese or in English? Do you feel it's easier to be funny for you in Chinese or in English?
It's easier for me to write comedy in English because I have not practiced Chinese enough in the past 10 years. So my Chinese skill have depreciated
Yeah.
instead of improving. Instead of improve.
I love how you say depreciate instead of deteriorate. That's such an accounting thing.
I know. Yeah.
Depreciate, just depreciate it.
Yeah.
Either you depreciate it or you expense it. I think that's the term,
Yeah.
right? Like expense it this quarter or you depreciate it over time.
You expense or you depreciate it. But yeah, my Chinese skill has depreciated over the years, so it takes me longer time to write Chinese material. Which one is funnier? I don't know what matrix I should use to measure it.
How big of a laugh do you get? Do you think that your Chinese audience loves you more, like laughs at your jokes more often than the American ones or Canadian ones?
It's about the same, but I definitely have more new material in English because it takes longer time for me to write new material in Chinese.
You can't just translate from one to the other, right? It's not
No,
nearly as funny.
no.
Yeah.
Everything is rewritten. My Chinese joke, I wrote everything from scratch. It's never a direct translation because it's different cultural context. Like, it's different cultural context. What people find funny is going to be completely different.
Yeah, like for example, the Chinese joke you were telling about you going on a date with this Chinese American guy, and then he kept saying, "Oh, you're going to comedy? 你要去讲笑话了吗？祝你什么什么来着？
50步笑百步，谁笑到最后
谁笑最后谁笑最好，或者什么笑，
Yeah，
还有什么笑一笑十年少之类的，我忘了。
对不对？笑一笑，十年少。对
对呀，
，basically it's like throwing a bunch of Chinese and like 谚语 at me. I was like, oh my god, dude, 这个谚语
这真是吗？真的有人这样子跟你说？
真是的。
哦，哇哦，OK，好吧。
My ABC boyfriend candidate, I would call him a boyfriend candidate because like we are not official yet, but
Well, hopefully he finds out through watching this episode.
oh yeah, I show him the clip immediately after. Yeah.
Okay, nice, nice, awesome. Wow. Okay, so well, props for landing a boyfriend plus a source of comedic material.
Yeah, hopefully a job soon too.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna make a joke, but I'm not gonna go there. OK，问你一个问题，你去 open mic 的时候，在 Toronto 或者纽约，会不会有很多其他的 comedian 经常是讲黄段子、荤段子 blue material？
啊，我自己都讲黄段，
你是有这样的 experience？
我自己都有。
对，但是 OK，好，但是我有听过一些非常的无厘头的黄段，就是为黄而黄，然后最后就 like somebody was telling a joke about his dick catching the monkeypox. I mean, even the premise itself didn't seem that appealing to me, right?
Yeah, it's not. I guess it depends on your sense of humor, but like, I think like being dirty for the sake of being dirty is like cheating because it's like I feel like a lot of the drunk club audience really like that, but like in the meantime it feels like kind of like cheating because like you're pretty much being dirty for the sake of being dirty without actually thinking through about sharing like a perspective. It's like it feels to me it feels like a little bit 我可能会觉得有一点低俗吧，但是 but in the meantime there are ways to make a dirty joke smart too. There are ways to still be really, really funny and smart with a dirty joke, right?
Right.
And 所以 like 我觉得就是取决于你的这个段子的那个 context 是什么，就是你想表达的观点是什么。比如说我的黄段子是比如说我的其实
对，来一个。
我用英文我中文是没有黄段子的，但是
Go ahead.
So one of my dirty joke is I did an Excel analysis of my dating history, and it turns out I have very high inventory turnover rate. On average, each of my relationship lasted for 2 weeks. So the moment a guy asked me for a first date, he was submitting a 2-week resignation notice. I think my men never want to stick it out. They only want to stick it in. Actually, that's not true. Some of them cannot even stick it in. Do you know why I hate paper straw? Because I have dated enough guys who couldn't get hard enough to stick it in. I don't want to suck on another thing that would turn soft.
Oh my god.
And bend like a sad ass noodle that tastes like shit. Okay? So I hate paper straw. I want something that can actually stick it in.
OK， 了解。
这就是那个段子。
OK, yeah, that's pretty dirty.
Now you know where the dirty joke come from. There's some build up to it, right? I was expressing an opinion. So in this case, the dirty jokes help uplift the premise.
OK, 好吧。
The premise is like complaining about, like basically the premise is like I struggle with dating.
Right. OK, but
dating is hard.
People. OK. Oh, I see what you're saying now.
The premise is dating is hard.
Yeah. OK， 还在那个 process。
所以我跟你说，就是我英文跟中文的风格完全不一样。就是 my English joke is。
是的，你刚刚那个东西要用中文讲的话，我觉得就因为大家不在那个语境里面，你知道吗
？Yeah, I won't ever write Mandarin jokes in this style. Like
是啊，我讲过一个 OK。我讲过一个那个 dirty joke in the Chinese setting, OK，0% laugh，OK，你也不用 like laugh out of politeness. But I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a one-liner. 我说你们知道焦裕禄为什么累得趴下了吗？因为他姓焦。
Here's the thing,
anyway,
like
很尴尬
those words are really explicit.
Yeah, 是的。
And Chinese culture is very reserved. 就是中国文化是非常含蓄的，就是中国的脱口秀要那个幽默也是非常含蓄的，不像西方是开放。
Trust me, I found out that night when I told the joke.
对，
大家太含蓄了。
对，就是一个是含蓄的幽默，一个是开放的幽默，所以那个观众的幽默感是不一样的。说到这里，我想到一个就是有点偏的话题，就我现在在 date 的那个男生，他是一个 ABC， 所以他的英文是母语，然后他在学中文嘛。
OK。
然后我是中文是母语，然后我英文是我第二语言，所以就出现了一个很有趣的事情，就是我说中文的时候会比较含蓄，说英文的时候会更加开放。他是反过来的。 他在说英文的时候非常含蓄，就是他在说英文的时候很 reserved， 但是他在说中文的时候，因为对他来说就是一个外语，他觉得可以随便说。
初生牛犊不怕虎嘛，反正都是 practicing。
对，初生牛犊不怕虎，就是这样。所以就很搞笑的事情就发生了，就是有一天，就是我们在约会的时候，
对，
我跟他用中文说了一句，it's like flirting， 我说你很性感，你好性感，我说了一句你好性感，然后他跟我说，他用中文跟我说，他说我听成了你好性快感，我说 what the fuck? That was the first time someone actually say that word to me in Chinese. Like, I was like,
to be honest，我没有听过那个词，说实话，但是我可以猜到是什么意思。
it's sexual pleasure.
Like, does that mean feels good having sex with you?
No，他听错了，他听成了
I see。
你好性快感，然后
哦，
I was like, how did you even know this word in Chinese? Like, how can you？ 就是这个，就是他的中文好到
Yeah，
会知道这种特别 explicit 的词，但是又不够好
Yeah，
到可以了解到这个 cultural context of the word, like the meaning behind that word。所以就造成了这样的一个冲突，这样的一个文化冲突。所以就是很有意思的一点，就是在中文脱口秀里面，其实是一个非常就是特别含蓄的，但是在英文脱口秀的时候，你要更直接。我发现有的时候我英文脱口秀太含蓄了，大家反而 get 不到。
好吧，我大概知道了。你们有很多趣事啊，我觉得他会贡献很多新的 material 给你。好吧 ，Amy， 好，谢谢你。
I appreciate it。
那今天先这样。
好的，
不客气。好，先这样，好，拜拜。